Hey, it's Doc here with another One Belly Wednesday. Do not trust a fart on a detox. That is rule number one for detoxing. This is a video for you as we have changes in season. If you happen to have issues with seasonal allergies like I used to, this is a really important topic. So chiropractic helped me in a really big way to help improve how my immune system reacted to the outside environment. I was a super sick little kid. I spent most of my childhood hopped up on Benadryl, passed out on the recliner watching football on Sundays. I grew up in Nebraska, and it was either the pollen or the dust mites or the corn detasseling, all of that kind of stuff always just drove my sinuses crazy. And so I spent most of my life plugged up in my nose and sneezing. And it was kind of actually a joke in my family about how I would blow my nose and it would sound like saxophone. So I, on the other hand, didn't actually find all of that so funny. And I was really, really amazed when my first couple years in chiropractic college, I went to go visit my grandma, where notoriously the feather pillows would just drive me nuts. And she lived out in a farm, and it was just all the things, right? I was always stuffy when I'd wake up, and I'd sneeze for usually the first 2 hours. And I got up that morning, went and had breakfast. We left, started driving back to Davenport, and it occurred to me that I didn't sneeze a single time. And I went, oh my gosh, chiropractic fixed my allergies. Well, then I went down to Florida for a visit, and all of a sudden all the things came back. So what I understood was that chiropractic helped me adapt to where I lived. My nerve system and my immune system were talking better to adapt to the flora and fauna of where I was. But if I traveled someplace, not so good. And it wasn't until after I was in Australia that I started practicing with a chiropractor who taught me about foods and things that would work with my body or would not work with my body. I started experimenting with that, and that helped me a ton too. But probably this one key has been the reason why I don't get sick the way a lot of other people do. I control the level of inflammation in my body. I choose when my body decides to purge it out. I have my own little competing theory on why people necessarily choose to push inflammation out of their body sporadically using bacteria and viruses. I think it's kind of nature's little way of doing a home cleaning, so to speak. But if you choose to engage in that process of pushing inflammation on a regular basis, you will be fascinated with how your body doesn't seem to do that as much anymore. At least I have been. And so what I have chosen to do is take on the advice of a naturopath who's one of my very first patients, who suggested that I do some form of cleaning internally every single change in season. So I do a detox, and I've experimented with all of the things. My go-to, like my most favorite one, is starting with my large intestine. If you think about what your large intestine does for you, it stores all the waste products. Then you aren't storing all that gunk up. You aren't reabsorbing and continue to be congested and inflamed. Traditional East Asian medicine talks about how the large intestine and the lungs are intimately related. As a person who has had chronic lung problems, I used to have all kinds of exercise-induced asthma as a kid and breathing issues and that kind of thing, and it seriously helps me out a ton. Now, as I was going through this process, and I was talking with my patients about doing detoxes, starting with your large intestine, then you move into your liver, and then you start playing around with the other organ systems. People would ask me if it's safe to do detox while you're breastfeeding or you're pregnant. Totally different ballgame. And so when you're breastfeeding or you're pregnant, there's a different way that you can do this, and it's using something called bentonite clay. So bentonite clay is basically dirt, and it's a dirt that they find and they purify, and you can find a food grade and a non-food grade. I always recommend the food grade for this one. The way that you go about this is, instead of having a release reaction with the herbs like senna, what you do instead is you create this situation where it's like a magnet. It starts to draw inflammation out of your body. The very first time I was ever introduced to like a bentonite clay or activated charcoal detox was, oh my goodness, I have these miracle black snakes of death leaving my body. And people were taking pictures of their bowel movements in the toilet. And there was these long black snakes that looked like molds of the inside of their intestines, right? Like you saw this, like all these lumps, bumps, like those are the tumors coming out. That's not really what that is. So it's clay, right? And it's clay, and it's activated charcoal, so that's why it's black, and that's what was in the pills. So it wasn't really what people thought it was, but it does help to pull and draw some of the toxins out of the mucosa, the stuff that's supposed to be like leaving your body anyway. And I find that super useful. But there's a secret to doing the bentonite clay detoxes. There's two big ones. The first is, because this works on an action of absorption, it takes a lot of water out of your system. So especially for breastfeeding, you really, I can't emphasize this enough, you have to drink probably double the amount of water you ordinarily do, because that stuff's going to be leaving your system. But number two, so to speak, so number two on this is that there is a way to kind of activate the bentonite clay in a way that makes it more effective. I don't fully understand how this works. I've experimented with myself on this, but I have seen that this works. They say that you can almost, if you think about like electrocharging it by putting it in water overnight, it seems that the longer the clay is in water for, the better it actually starts to work for you. So if you just initially put a quarter teaspoon of the clay in the water and you stir it up and you drink it, that has a different effect than if you put that same quarter teaspoon into a glass of water, you fill up the water, you stir it up, you set it in the fridge, and you set it there overnight. Then the next morning, when you open up the door and you get that glass out and you stir it up because it kind of settles down on the bottom, stir it back up and then drink it, I will tell you from personal experience, my results have gotten a lot better with that. I'm not sure if it has something to do with the ions involved with the interaction of the clay and the water or what it is, but I found that to be a lot more effective. And absolutely, that kind of detox is totally fine for you to do pregnant or nursing. There's no added kind of, again, herbs to be concerned about. There's no reactions that your body is going to have. What it's going to do is just help to suck some of the stuff out of your system that probably doesn't belong there anyway. And so you can move your bowels. But again, you have to drink extra water, otherwise you're going to end up constipated with it. Because I've done that too. I have failed to drink enough water while doing a bentonite clay detox. I was super uncomfortable. So if you have problems with moving your bowels to begin with, or if you're somebody who has something like IBS and you don't want to encourage extra, going to the bathroom, then that's something that you can do. Again, number one rule, like I said at the top, do not trust a fart on a detox, because if you feel like, oh yeah, I can get away with this one, you will be sorry. Voice of experience talking.